I literally look up at night and I think about the bent neck lady. Like, I stare at the corner and I start thinking about that bent neck lady. Or I stare at the corner and I start thinking about that man in the hat. All the time. All the time. This show has still messed with me psychologically. In 2020, I watched a total of 20 shows. Yes, 20 shows. You know what? It's okay, because during the spring and the summer, I kind of was in the house like everyone else. So this was kind of like the perfect time for me to maybe catch up on shows that I've always wanted to watch, or watch a few shows that, I don't know, that came out this year that are interesting at the time. Some shows I'll briefly talk about because they've been talked about so much that I feel like I don't even have to explain the plot behind them. But other shows I'll get a little bit in-depth into. First, I'm going to start with the category of supernatural thriller with a tad bit of romance, you can say. So the first show that I want to talk about is The Vampire Diaries. Vampire Diaries is basically about a girl named Elena Gilbert, and she falls in love with Stefan, who is a vampire that is centuries years old, and he also has a brother named Damon. They are the Salvatore brothers, and all these supernatural beings come into her life. It's basically just a teen drama romance. There's some good episodes, I'm not gonna lie. The first 3 seasons are top tier, but overall the show is kind of all over the place and gets ridiculous at moments, so I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. So next we have Haunting of Hill House, and I'm not a huge fan of horror movies or horror shows. I don't like scary things, but Haunting of Hill House is an exception. It's basically about 5 siblings who continue to be haunted because of a house that they lived in during their adolescent life, and they're haunted in different ways. Some of them have special abilities, some of them are seeing a bent neck lady when they look up. Literally, I cannot go to sleep at night without thinking about this bent neck lady, so I would give it a 10 out of 10 because I'm definitely gonna watch it again at some point. And then next, of course, we have the sequel to Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor. We have these 2 British kids that live in Bly Manor, and Victoria Petretti, I forgot how to pronounce her last name, but Victoria Petretti's character is the nanny for them, and she has to take care of them, but spooky things keep on happening within the house. Her character is so funny in here because she keeps on like covering mirrors and acting kind of crazy. Well, crazy things are happening in her life, but it's all okay. I love this girl. Yeah, it's pretty good. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. So then next in this category, this is more of a kid's show, but I'm going to include it because it has supernatural elements. We have Julie and the Phantoms, which is a show that I was surprisingly very impressed by. It has a similar vibe of High School Musical, the series, but I think overall it's a little bit better music quality, talent-wise. I mean, Kenny Ortega really knows how to work these kids, even though some of them are in their 20s, but anyways, Julie and the Phantoms is about a teenage girl named Julie who reconnects with the musical side of herself through this ghost band that died back in the 1990s. And together they kind of make music, and she impresses her school, she impresses herself, and I would give it a 10 out of 10. So next I'm going to go into comedy series I watched. One of the first sitcoms that I think I watched in completion is New Girl. I remember watching New Girl when it first came out in 2011. I was 10 at the time, and I thought it was cute, but I didn't care for it that much. But now going back to the show and actually watching all of the seasons, I love it so much. Like, I love it to death. And just so many iconic lines, iconic moments.
A white man broke in today.
A white man? No! Well, what does security do about it?
Nothing.
Typical!
It's got that quirky 2010s quality, but in a good way. So I would definitely give it a 10 out of 10. I just want to say that I love New Girl so much that I even made a New Girl poster. Okay, yeah, that's all. Okay, so next we have Parks and Rec, which surprisingly I haven't watched until 2020. The best thing about this show is that the cast chemistry is like amazing. It's uncomparable to I think most sitcoms today or just like a lot of TV shows in general. My only thing is my favorite character is probably Rob Lowe's character, Chris Traeger, I think his name is, and I also love Ann Perkins. They're not really in the last season, and I feel like because of that, I might have to give this show a 9 out of 10. The last show that I have on this list is Never Have I Ever, and this show is a comedy coming-of-age show on Netflix about an Indian teenage girl who is still kind of coping from her dad's death from a year ago, while also trying to be like the cool kid in school and raise her social status. It is a little bit on the corny side and it's not for everyone. I personally liked it, although I know the main character, Debbie, can be a little bit unbearable sometimes when she's like super rude to her friends. So yeah, you know what? I'll give it an 8.5. Why not? So the next genre I'm going to get into are romantic comedies. The first show that I'm going to talk about is Emily in Paris. So Emily in Paris is about a girl named Emily, played by Lily Collins. She works at a marketing agency and she's hired to go work in Paris to bring a more American perspective for the people in Paris in that marketing agency. Reason why a lot of people can't really call it like one of their Netflix favorites is because the clothes don't really live up to the style they're trying to achieve at. They're kind of outdated and at times a little clashy and tacky. She doesn't really look that American to me sometimes. She just looks confusing. And then on top of that, the show has like a lot of cliches I'm a little sick of seeing in romantic comedies. I'm gonna give this show a 6 out of 10. Only because the plot was okay, again predictable, but it was alright, and because it's getting a season 2, I'm gonna hope that they learn and the show gets a little bit better. Okay, so next we have Dash and Lily. It's a really cute holiday show on Netflix about these two teenagers, and together they're communicating through this notebook that they leave in random areas of New York City. It's kind of like they're on this mini scavenger hunt to find each other, and I think overall the show's very playful, fun. It gives you that Christmas feeling. My only thing is that like the Jonas Brothers just pop in it and it's just what? At one point I'm pretty sure Nick Jonas kind of like mentions his wife, and I feel like this man just can't stop himself from mentioning his wife. But overall, the show is pretty good, and I think it's going to become a holiday classic, at least for me. So I'm going to give it maybe an 8.5, light 9 out of 10. Okay, so the next show that I have in my rom-com category is The Mindy Project. So Mindy Lahiri, which is Mindy Kaling's character, is a gynecologist in New York City. She's a romantic at heart, and in the show she mentions like a lot of other rom-coms like Sleepless in Seattle and Pretty Woman, stuff like that. But my overall problem with the show is that anytime we see some kind of romantic relationship that Mindy has with another new man in her life, he's always white. And overall, the cast is just white. And they're in New York City. New York City. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. I'm also kind of bothered that it's not really that funny. There are funny moments, but I wouldn't even call it a funny show. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10 because it's not the worst thing in the world, but I wouldn't rewatch it again. And I think all comedy series should have that rewatch factor to it. Alright, so the next show that's part of my rom-com genre area is High Fidelity. High Fidelity is a show featuring Zoe Kravitz. Her character's name is Rob. She is a record store owner and she's revisiting some of her past relationships and trying to get over them. But in the process, she's still finding herself hanging on to her last relationship. And it's really fun. The chemistry between her and her friends is really good too. And again, I'm gonna acknowledge the fact that this show also has cliches in it of having the sassy black girl and the gay best friend, you know? But I will say that at least these characters have more of a personality, more depth to them. I genuinely laugh at the characters in this show, and Zoe Kravitz is incredible in this role. And if you love comedy, romance, and music, this is like the perfect show for you. So I'm gonna have to give it a 10 out of 10 actually. I really love it. And then the last show on the list, I'm not even gonna talk about too much because it's been here forever. All I'm gonna say is Tasia's season was pretty good. La Quinta was too hot. Justice for Brendan and Ivan. It's going on for so long for a reason because it's pretty addicting. It's good entertainment. So I'm gonna have to give it a 7 out of 10. Okay, so now we're going to go into romantic drama. First one on my list I want to talk about is probably one of the biggest shows right now at this moment is Bridgerton. Okay, so this is future Olivia speaking from the editing room, my dining room, and I just wanted to take out the part about Bridgerton here because everyone and their freaking dog has seen this show by now, so I don't feel the need to like explain the whole plot. But basically, I have a couple of problems with the show. I really like the costumes and the set design, but overall I feel like they didn't like include as much diversity as they could have. Here, I was also able to figure out Lady Whistledown, whatever, Whistletoe, pretty fast too. Daphne's bangs remind me of Dolores's mustache. Simon's pretty hot but has a gross personality, and so does Daphne low-key. So yeah, I will probably not rewatch the show, but will I watch season 2? Absolutely. Next show. So yeah, I'm gonna have to give Bridgerton a 7 out of 10. Okay, so the last show that I have on my romance dramas list is Normal People. So Normal People takes place in Ireland and is about two young adults, Marianne and Connell, and they're trying to figure themselves out and navigate who they are in the world. So it's interesting because in the beginning it takes place at high school and Connell is kind of the popular one, while Marianne is the really uncool girl that people make fun of. But then when we see them progress to college, Connell becomes more introverted and unsocial, and Marianne becomes the cool social butterfly. And it's interesting to see like how these characters are growing up from like ages 18 to I think 23, and how they always come back to each other at the end of the day, even though they go through so many different friendships and relationships. If I have to describe the show in 3 words, it would be sincere, emotional, and bad communication. But that's another thing. I don't want to spoil too much because it's so good, and I have to give it a 10 out of 10. Okay, so next we're going to get into dramas. And I think the only drama show that I watched in 2020 is A Teacher. And I know that there is an element of romance to it, but it really isn't romance, it's manipulation. So basically A Teacher is about a teacher who sexually abuses her student, and it shows how these events during his young adult years still continues to affect him till this day. And I think the show overall is a pretty good PSA and can be uncomfortable for a lot of viewers. So I wouldn't recommend it to everyone. At the end of the day, I enjoyed it and I thought it was pretty good, so I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. The next category I have are adventure shows. So the first show that I'm going to talk about is The Mandalorian. It goes on this journey of taking care of a child who I'm not sure if I should reveal the name of, but if you haven't seen the show, Baby Yoda. And we kind of see him become more emotionally attached to this kid, and it's just a very heartfelt, cute Star Wars mission story. I would give it a 9 out of 10. I liked it a lot, and the ending was really good. Also, I love Pedro Pascal, so how could I not like it? Okay, so the next show that I'm going to talk about is a show that I've of course seen before, and this is Avatar: The Last Airbender. I mean, I've got Appa right next to me right here. Anyways, I think this is a show a lot of people either rewatched or were introduced to during the quarantine. There's a lot of great themes and morals in Avatar that I still think about till this day. And yeah, I love this show. I'd give it a 100 out of 10. No, an infinity out of 10. Infinity squared out of 10. It's amazing, incredible. So that brings me into the sequel to the Avatar The Last Airbender series, The Legend of Korra. We watch the new Avatar, Korra, grow and develop, where she comes across different villains every season, and we go from watching this girl who's very hot-headed and rebellious to a very new, respectable Avatar. I would like to give it like a 9 out of 10, but because the second season is so terrible to me, I'm gonna have to give it an 8, but still pretty good, and I would recommend it to all Avatar fans. And then lastly, we have shows that go into the science education category. The first show that I have to talk about is called 100 Humans. Basically, it's a show about bringing people from different ages and backgrounds, and they're all part of this one experiment that's looking at different things part of human life, such as attraction. There's like an episode about pain versus pleasure, things like that that we've kind of seen explored on like National Geographic shows a couple of times already. It's more of an entertaining show, I would say, and because of that, I'm gonna give it maybe an 8 or a strong 7.5 out of 10. And then lastly, I have the show Abstract: The Art of Design. This is basically a show about different designers over the world, ranging from costume design to interior design to graphic design. And I think it's really an inspirational show for anyone who's interested in art. One episode that I particularly really enjoyed was the episode about bioarchitecture. And there's so many different episodes too if you're into illustration or even stage design. So it's on Netflix and I would recommend it. I would give it probably like an 8.5 out of 10. Yeah, maybe even a 9. 8.5, yeah. Because it's not for everyone, but yeah, I liked it. Yeah, those are all the shows that I've watched. I don't know, I think that they were all pretty good. I would have to say my 3 favorites are definitely High Fidelity, Normal People, and number 1, The Haunting of Hill House. I'm excited for all the other shows I'm gonna watch in 2021. Like, I'm currently watching WandaVision right now, and it's been great so far. I never thought I would like Vision this much. This is pretty much all that I have for today, and I love TV, I love media, and this has been really fun. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Bye!